how should we adjust our Purim celebrations given that it is Erev Shabbat this year? When should we start and finish the seudah? And should we ensure it does not ruin our Friday night meal? And what is the best time to have the seudah when Purim is not on Erev Shabbat?
All right. Well, this is a good question, because it's not actually only in a year such as this year, when it falls on a Friday. The truth is, I have never understood the practice of being Mekayem Seudat Purim towards the end of the day. I don't see any reason to put it off till the end of the day. Many people start mamash at the end of the day, and most of the seudah is actually at night after Purim, or at least half of the seudah is after Purim. And I do not understand such a practice. I can also tell you that in the Ma'aseh Rav of the Gra, which relates and mentions various statements and psakim and minhagim of the Gra, Agon Rabbeinu Eliyahu Mivilna, it states there explicitly that the Gra's view was that one should make the Seudat Purim in the morning. Now, morning doesn't mean 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. necessarily, but I would think that by 12, by midday, that's the right time to sit down to Seudat Purim. That's my view. I know this might clash for some people. It might clash with the children's programs and plans running around the shchuna and the neighborhood and going into this friend and that friend and handing out 150 either matanot le'evyonim, or maybe not 150, but mishloach manoth. Mishloach manoth is a lovely thing, but it doesn't have to, and it shouldn't take over the day to the exclusion of other things. In other words, there is a proper time for that. It should be done at the beginning of the day, shortly after davening in the morning. My recommendation all years, and particularly when Purim falls on Erev Shabbat, because Friday is not a very long day, and unless you happen to be in the southern hemisphere, perhaps, Erev Shabbat is not a long day. There are things to be done before Shabbat. We should try and finish the seudah several hours before Shabbat. One is not really supposed to have a seudah Erev Shabbat bichlal. In other words, let me read to you what Rambam writes about this in general, to do with Fridays, with Erev Shabbat. Rambam writes in Hilchot Shabbat, Perek Shiloshim, Perek Lamed, Halakha Daled, Asur likboa seudah umishta be'erev Shabbat. It is asur to make a big, important meal, a banquet or a celebratory meal such as Seudat Purim on Erev Shabbat. Rambam is not referring to Purim, but he's referring to any Friday. You don't make a date with someone to sit down to a nice, relaxed, fancy meal, Erev Shabbat, mipnei Chavod HaShabbat, because of Kavod Shabbat, because we wish to enter Shabbat both with an appetite and with enough time to prepare everything Lichvot Shabbat, without rushing, without cutting things too fine. So Rambam continues, Mutar le'echol v'lishtot ad shetechshach. Be'etzem, it's mutar, you're allowed to eat on Friday till Shabbat enters, and then you have to make Kiddush. V'af al pi chen mikavod haShabbat she'imana adam min hamincha u'ma'ala. Nevertheless, one should not sit down to a meal, min hamincha u'ma'ala, which means from 9.5 hours, tesha v'chesi sha'ot zmaniyot. So on average day, 6 to 6, sunrise to sunset, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That means that one should not be involved in eating a fancy meal or any kind of fixed meal from 3:30 p.m. onwards. Why? So that a person will arrive at Shabbat and the Shabbat meal with a healthy appetite, and the seudah then is Lichvot Shabbat. If a person sits down to a seudat Shabbat, Leil Shabbat, after having finished an hour before, or something like that, 2 hours before even, seudat Purim, which is usually a fairly sumptuous and very satisfying meal, not to mention the quantities of alcohol that some people insist on imbibing during that meal, which we can discuss presently, then frankly most people will not be very eager to sit down to another meal, and that is exactly a lack of kavod Shabbat. So for this reason, specifically on this year, it is a good idea to eat seudat Purim earlier. But I recommend doing this always, to eat around lunchtime. I should perhaps just add that with regards to minha, if this time of year, for example, here in Eretz Yisrael, let me just check exactly, but I think that midday is about 10 to 12 now, and the earliest time you can daven minha is about 12:23, shall we say, in Eretz Yisrael. So when you're going to eat a meal in the second half of a large meal in the second half of the day, it is correct to daven minha first. So daven minha at about 12:20, 12:30, and immediately after that, sit down to the meal.
Right, but when it's we're saying that when it's Erev Shabbat, it's preferable to eat even earlier than that.
Then you would have to eat. Then you would have to start before Hasoth, which is now about 11:53. So you would have to start about 11:30. But if you haven't started by then daven minha 12:20, 12:25, 12:30, and then sit down to the meal.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org. If you are inspired by Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to get involved in Torah Eretz Yisrael activities in your local area, please fill out the relevant form by going to the link which appears on the screen.